Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition to Greet the Week with my co-host here, Mona Duncan, and I'm Jan Moray. This week, Mona has the topic for us about humility. Let's talk about humility in civil discourse. So, Mona, what's on your mind?
Well, I find that in life in general, sometimes snark meets snark.
It certainly does.
And I want to learn how to even more so. I can definitely look back on the past and see where changes have been made in me personally, but we can always improve, always improve. Yes. And so I want to look at today of how that we can meet the things that happen in life with humility and civility, and maybe to start off by just defining what does the word humility mean, or what does it mean to be humble?
Right. Okay, so what does it mean to be humble and have humility?
Well, a lot of times people seem to think that being humble means that you have to kind of put yourself down.
Okay.
But humility does not mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we can maintain humility whenever we're not always so concerned about our position, our identity, our input.
Yeah.
Then we can be willing to receive what someone else is saying. And then back to that snark meeting snark, even if it is snarky, we can respond in a way that's civil.
Yeah. Or to just start catching ourselves when we're being snarky.
Exactly.
Being aware of how we're responding and saying, okay, now what did that trigger in me that I'm feeling this way and I'm responding like this to this person.
Right. And then how can I change it into a way that's, maybe it's softening my expression, maybe it's softening the demand, just it's remembering that this is a fellow human being and we want to connect. Yeah. We want to connect and be connected. And I know there is one person in my life, well, it's a person at work, at the Sanction Center, and this person, it's an employee, mm-hmm. And this particular person is the most moody person I have just. Oh.
We all have one of those, don't we?
We all have one of those, yeah. And the thing of it is that I was taking it personal. I thought, well, it's just me. They just, Yeah. And but then I began to realize, but some days, this person would just be chatty and nice, and everything was just fine and dandy. And I realized, well, maybe it's not me. I think it maybe is. It's you, but it's not.
That person and say maybe it's you, or you just.
No, I didn't say that to me.
Okay.
I said it to me. I said it to me. So anyway, I've been, interacting with this person on a 2 or 3 times a week for many, many years, as long as they have been there, which is less than me. But anyway, I have just recently chosen to resign from working at the Sanction Center. Mm-hmm. And how rumors spread. And so one day we were interacting and she says, I hear you're leaving.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, I am. And, I kind of wanted to say, well, make your life easier or something. But, but I didn't. I didn't. I just simply answered her question. And I said, yes, I am choosing to resign. I'm going to, be doing other things and giving more attention to other things. And she says, well, I've always noticed that you seem to take everything in stride. And I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, coming from this person.
Yeah. Well, it's always surprising when somebody like that has that kind of insight.
Yeah.
because your thought is like you never would have thought that this person would have said something like that or thought something
Exactly.
like that.
Or even noticed that the times whenever, they were being real snarky, I just would give a reply as best I could and as civil as I could.
Yeah.
And, maybe make some kind of a small chatter or just overlook it. And there's a big difference in ignoring something and in overlooking it.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole difference in the attitude that's going forth. Because
Mm-hmm.
we have an aura about us and people read us and we read them. And it's, and so kindness is going to be more effective toward kindness. Kindness is going to be more effective toward anything.
It is. It's going to be. I mean, it is the answer. I mean, you see so much stuff going on these days about people complaining and being snarky, and just not having a kind word to say. And whenever people get that way, you just don't want to be nice back. It's just
Right. So that's why we need to, only work on ourselves, because that's the only one we have any control over is ourselves. And to realize that, if someone is allergic to cats, then they're allergic to cats. And so when you're around cats, there's going to be some kind of an allergic reaction there. Maybe depending on the distance of and the length of the hair on the cat and that kind of stuff. My point is that sometimes we think that this one person or that this incident is what triggers and it's what is the problem that I'm kind of, snarky with. But whenever we begin to realize that, I find that a lot of times, not only coworkers, but family members, the ones that you just really cherish and love and are a part of, can just kind of get under your skin more than anyone else.
Oh yeah, they can. They can. I mean, I feel that. I understand that.
So you identify.
I can definitely identify with that.
Yeah. And so, sometimes my husband, he'll just be silly, and it's just okay. And then sometimes it can be silly, and to me, it's not quite okay.
Right.
And I think about that. Apparently it's not the silliness that I'm allergic to.
Right.
Because sometimes I'm okay with it and sometimes I'm not. So I want to begin to look at me.
Yeah.
I want to begin to look at me. And how can I see things differently, think things differently, and so forth, so that maybe we can interact, or that I can interact on a way that is connecting rather than disconnecting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I understand that so much because I find myself on a very regular basis. I feel the annoyance inside me.
Right.
And it's like, okay, it's not because of anything he did or she did. It's because of where I am at this moment right now. And one of the things that I've started to think about is to focus my thoughts from I'm feeling annoyed right now to I know once this person is no longer in my life, I'm going to miss this. Because that's really what turns out being the case, is that those things that get under your skin are the things that you really miss once they're not around anymore.
Right. So it goes back to seeing that humanity.
Yes.
Yeah. And so just having that civil discourse, because this person really does mean a lot to me. And bottom line is I mean a lot to them also.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if we don't know that if we would not acknowledge that, whenever I'm working with the classes and so forth on job skills and things like that, who are those that are near and dear to you? Well, they rarely ever include their co-workers. I said, well, they really are near and dear to you. It's just how do you change your focus into seeing them as being near and dear? That maybe they make your work a little bit more honest, and maybe they make it a little bit more pleasant. That we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So I want to share the screen here.
Okay.
So thought that we'd look at a couple of things. Okay, here we go. Can you see that?
There it is. It's come up now.
Okay, it's Maslow's hierarchy
You
of
want
needs.
to put it in a slideshow mode, so it
In a what?
In slideshow mode. If you go up.
Oh, sure.
On
there
slideshow, and
That's
that
even
way.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, that way it shows up on the whole screen.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you know, all the philosophers, I just like them. There's some I disagree with. There's something in there that I find to be just really, really special and meaningful.
Well, and it's good to see different perspectives too, even if you don't agree with it.
Exactly. And or getting new insights, even whenever we do agree with it and all that, you know?
Yep.
So anyway, here is a replica of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that it starts out, and the theory is that we start out, you know, being full down here at the bottom, or being, I'm on the wrong one. I want to go back. That we start out, and then we go into, you know, once we get our physical needs taken care of, then we go into being safe. And when we're safe, you know, we'll climb trees and speak up and that kind of stuff. And then we go on to love and belonging, and then we begin to really feel good about ourselves. And eventually we can get to where we self-actualize as being to who we really are. So here is the same thing. And several years ago, I want to be open and honest, and you know, I took on a responsibility with a health and wellness, and sometimes I commit to things because I find that if I've made a commitment to you, I'm going to be more committed to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the reasons that I took that position, and it was not only to work within the local, but it was also to go and to train others, you know, in health and wellness. And I was looking at mental as much as everything, but it also includes physical. Well, anyway, so was at the initial training, and here was this Maslow's, and so this is me, you know. I saw me, boy, I'm already up there. I may be crawling up there, but I'm climbing up, and I'm at that self-actualization. And all of a sudden, in the insight that came to me was, how could I be up there being so self-actualized when my diet and my sleep habits and my activity and how much water I was not drinking and my health and all of that was just not there. And so this is, and then I began to realize that, you know what, I was way down at the bottom of that pyramid.
Yeah.
Way down at the bottom. Now, there was many things in my life that had already really accomplished, and so it wasn't degrading. It was just an insight to the fact that I had put myself up higher than the evidence shows.
Mm-hmm. Based on the triangle.
Yeah. So in teaching the basic intensive training, I have the students to read an article from some journals, and then to teach us what they've learned. And so this was The Basic Needs by Dr. William Glasser and Brady Prescott. And she is a delightful young lady that is just now getting her feet wet and really soaked in well with the concepts of Dr. Glasser. Mm-hmm. And I liked the way she did it. She talked about the Maslow's self-actualization, and then she compared it to Dr. Glasser. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you can see up here, but here's my little picture. Yes. And this is the picture of life that is just pouring things into us. Because from the day we're born, you know, and until we die, we're having things poured into us. Some things we may getting and bringing in ourselves, but still life experiences, more information, all that kind of stuff. So instead of using it as a pyramid to climb up, you know, to go from one level up to another, she looked at it as a beaker that was to be filled. Mm-hmm. And the bottom of the beaker was Dr. Glasser's basic needs, which includes several of the pyramid levels. Yeah. Yes. To survive, to be powerful, to have fun, to love and belong, to exercise our freedom. And that the more solid these are, then how that we can go spend the rest of our life building on all of these things, and then going up, to job responsibility, team spirit, autonomy, and where we are not just thinking to ourselves of that, I need to be appreciated for this or paid for this or whatever, that it just really begins to come from life itself pouring into us. Just some of those little bitty things. Well, you do take things in stride. What happened? What did I do?
Oh,
yeah.
You got to the end of the show, yeah.
Yeah. I want to go back to this. So how do we begin to do that? How do we begin to accept these things of the basic needs that are in us that literally drive us? And, hunger drives us because there's something that's lacking there. And there are times, have you ever been hungry for something but it wasn't food? But yet, even in that hunger for something, and you don't know how to define it, sometimes you wind up going to the food.
That's right. You end up eating anyway because you don't know what else to do.
I don't know what else to do. I'm not hungry for food, but because we associate hunger with food. And as we can begin to look at and associate the hunger we have with more than just the survival need of food.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's to have a vision of our quality world. It is what is really quality to us. Those things that I want, those things that I don't want, those things that I want to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
And then we begin to look at our strengths as well as our deficiencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go back to those basic needs all the time. When something isn't working quite right, or I'm feeling uneasy or something like that, I go back and say, okay, which one of my needs is lacking? And
right.
It's like, what am I hungry for?
Right. But I'm not going to go get the
there. It's, what do I need to put more of in my life that I don't have right now? And I think that's just a continual process, that you're listening to your feelings and paying attention to what it is that you need, and then you go out and get those things that you need and pull them into your life.
Right. And in working with the inmates to get to know more about them, as we, I will ask them, what's one of your strengths?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say, well, what about a weakness? What's a weakness?
Yeah.
And the majority of the time, the strength, oh, well, I think that's my weakness too.
Oh.
And so as we begin to assess what our strengths are, and then how are we over you? Because, a strength taken to extreme can become a weakness.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And so then look also what those deficiencies are. And so then as we look at our strength, we want to improve that strength, but we want to improve it in a way that is good for us as well as good for others, good for the whole. And so we begin to look at the capacity of it, and then also our boundaries. How sometimes does our boundaries take over someone else's boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
Or how sometimes do we interfere? Or how sometimes does our capacity is so big that it limits other people developing their capacity?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then always practicing new thoughts.
I think that's a good one. That is just so important, because our brains are so, they call it neuroplasticity. We can change things. We can get out of our rut of those thoughts that are bringing us down. And how can I change, like the example before about loved ones saying something that annoys you.
Right.
And then instead of looking at it, and they're saying, he's so annoying, saying, I know that this particular annoying thing that he's doing right now, I'm going to miss when he's no longer in my life. And it does take practice, and to be aware of the thoughts that you're having and whether they're helping you or hurting you. I think that's
yes. And so, the happiness and the contentment and the civility and all that kind of stuff, sometimes those thoughts takes practice too.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. They do.
And it's the awe factor. It is, so what's a way that we can begin to bring the awe back into our life, the peace back into our life? maybe first thing in the morning, just begin to think of something that just gives you awe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the birth of a child, sunset, something that's just as awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
And then meditate on it. Think about it. You know, mull over it for just 2, 3, 4 minutes. And what this does is it begins to set up inside of ourselves it affects everything about us. But it affects our system to not be so, to be more awe-inspired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sets us up, you know, that...
And if people have trouble finding something that they're in awe of, to think of, you know, what are you grateful for?
Right.
What are the things that are you grateful for in your life?
Yeah.
I started reading a book yesterday called Resiliency, and it talked about POWs and some of the horrible, dreadful things that they had to endure when they were prisoners. And I think of, we have it so good in our life right now. There's so many things that we can be grateful for and happy about. And so there's always things, if you just look around, that you can be in awe of and be grateful for.
Grateful for. Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to our, you know, back to our humility.
Mm-hmm.
To think not less of ourselves, but to think of ourselves less, in that I have enough. I have enough.
Yeah.
It may not be what I'm striving for, but it's enough.
It is enough.
And in that humility, then we can, just appreciate life more.
Mm.
And appreciate others also. And we have a magazine here in Waco that the Wacoan, and Jack Smith is a local writer. He's a humorist. And he has, because of rambling thoughts while driving around Waco. And there was a column that he had the other day I thought was real cute. He said, he wrote about political correctness running amok.
Oh.
He said, I would like to state clearly and for the record that I am neutral biotics. I am neither probiotic nor am I antibiotic. Can't we all just get along? I'm not taking a side. I say let biotics be biotics. And then he ends his column with if I were king, the laws he would enact if he were king.
Okay.
And he said, if I were king, political correctness would stop running amok. At least it would walk amok. So in being, you know, more civil, if we can just be less snarky.
Yeah.
I'm getting closer when I don't respond to snark with snark. And I'm getting even closer when I'm not off-put by the snark.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing that brings to my mind the whole political correctness, which we could do a whole nother day on that topic by itself, is, you know, the people that people will make a comment and sometimes they really don't mean any harm by it.
Right.
And
exactly.
The other person receiving those words takes it the wrong way or out of context or whatever. And so, but it's almost come to the point that the person being offended, no matter what it is always in the right. And the other person, you know, ends up doing all the apologizing and stuff. But if we can, you know, one of the things I used to tell my kids and my direct reports all the time is that think about the intent that the comment was given. You know, try to put yourself in that person's shoes. Don't just jump immediately to it being negative. It's like words come out of your mouth, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're against this person or you disagree with them. So let the conversation go a little bit farther before you start jumping to conclusions and getting snarky.
Right. I was talking with a young man this morning, and he was telling me about a new supervisor that had come in at his work, and this guy was just really, rah, rah, rah. And he was just getting really angry, and he was ready to just tell him he knew what he was doing. And anyway, he took a break because he didn't want to lose his job. And he called his girlfriend and started talking to her. And he said, she really calmed me down. And I said, now let's just wait a minute. Let's just really think about this. I said, she gave you some input you hadn't thought about, and you calmed yourself down. You see, we give external things too much credit.
Right.
We give extra, I was getting angry because this guy was making me mad. And then I got calm because my girlfriend calmed me down.
Right. And I can't do anything for myself.
Right. Goes back to here. It goes back to here.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the guy wasn't acting like a royal jerk, and I'm not saying that she was not giving him some, that caring. I care about the fact. And that as we begin to look at that, and we can do that same thing for ourselves, although we do need others. We definitely need others to help us see a different perspective. And that can kind of go back to our little here of sharing the screens. Share it again. That practice new thoughts, and we self-evaluate the outcome. And in that outcome, in the getting angry or in the calming down, what energy was used? And then how much did it bring satisfaction or no satisfaction? Am I getting angrier and angrier because this guy was telling me what to do? How much satisfaction was that giving? So whether it's in a positive or negative, it's looking at evaluating the outcome. And many times by the time we get to the outcome, we've already gotten to the point where maybe we're not as much of an emotional, in an emotional emotion.
As emotionally charged.
Yeah, we may not be as emotionally charged just by that little bitty pause of the space.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking about it more. But even in the midst of those things, if we would give ourselves that space in the midst of it.
And it's taking the power back, instead of giving the power to the other people to make me angry or comfort me, I'm taking the power back because I can figure it out myself. I know what I need to do in order to get rid of those angry thoughts and not to act on that anger and to calm myself down.
Right. And then do it. I had a little thing here I want to read at the end of it to closing our day out today, because I think this is just really powerful. It was from a fiction book. I rarely ever read fiction, but someone recommended it to me and highly recommended it. And it has some really good points in it. Although it's fiction, it has a lot of wisdom to it. And it was on the battlefield, it was the name of the book was Winged Pharaoh. But it was on the battlefield, and the Pharaoh, the ruler, had been shot and was dying. And his daughter ran up to him, and it was his final words to her. And he said, much of rulership have I taught on earth, and I will teach when I'm away from earth. And it's back to what you were saying about I'll miss this when they're not here.
Right.
So whether they're here or not, we can look back on those things we rue as well as looking back on those things that we appreciate. Tell him he's given advice to his son. Okay, he's given advice to his daughter to pass on to his son. Tell him to listen to wisdom, whether it be from the lips of an old man or a young boy. For it is not earthly work or earthly years that give speech what is fruitful to the ear. Tell him to rule as I have tried to rule, sharing his strength with the weak until they become strong, sharing his courage with the frightened until they become bold, sharing his honesty with the thieving ones until they become true. And for you, my darling daughter, I, of my own knowledge, tell you that this much is true. Then when your speech is proven, return and help others.
Oh. Yeah. It's a good thought.
It's to looking at the wisdom of the ages, the Maslows, the Glassers, the grandfathers, the maids,
right. And to pull the little gems that mean something to you and are helpful to you.
Right.
And like you said at the beginning, we might not believe everything that this person wrote about, but there's certainly some little gems you can pull out of there and use for your life
And apply it.
yeah 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 so
Live life more civilly and
right, and less snarky.
yeah, less snarky.
All right, well, thanks Mona for that. That was another edition of Greet the Week. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place.
Okay. So
All right.
long.
Bye-bye.